But she finally did it. Susan had her baby. Welcome to Brimwood Farm, and I'm thrilled to report the lambing is finally done. I decided to lamb a little bit earlier this year. I wanted to lamb it in February. I didn't sponge, I just left it to nature. And nature had other ideas. So my first one lambed in February, and my last one, Susan, the rescue sheep, only just lambed in April. 6 weeks later. It really is quite the success story. Unlike Tracy, who we decided to give one more go to and failed us miserably, had no milk, had a blind ram lamb who died, had a lovely ewe lamb, but she didn't want her, so she was sold as an orphan bottle lamb. Susan has ended on a high. So Susan is now going to go and be a retired sheep, but she has had this lovely, lovely little tup lamb. Did it all herself. I looked at the camera, he was already up, he was already suckling, she's got milk. I am just thrilled. And even more so because of the nightmare situation we had last year. So for those of you that don't know, Susan came to me January-ish last year. She had just been in the field with 3 rams and another ewe. We tracked down, my friend tracked down the owner. He said, I don't really want them, would you like to take them? So we took them. And it turned out that Susan and her daughter, who was the other ewe, were both pregnant. The problem was, Susan then got really bad twin lamb, and she just lost loads of weight. She had a really nice big udder, but she lost so much weight putting into those lambs, she lost her udder, and she really became skeletal. We didn't know when the due date was for these lambs. And eventually it was decided between the vet and myself that actually it was a case of we need to induce her to save her life. It's either we induce her and the lambs are born and they don't make it, or she dies and the lambs die. So we induced her, and she had 2 lovely little lambs. And funnily enough, it's these two here. And then it took about a month, but she couldn't walk, she couldn't stand up. It took about a month, we got her back on her feet, and she's turned into just the most lovely sheep, really. So she's gonna get retired now. Now she's had this one little boy. I'm gonna show you how lovely he is. Look at this. Look at you. He's a Texel Norfolk Horn cross. Strange variety. You can see what a good mum she is. Brilliant, aren't you? So it means our lambing is almost done. He's only 2 days old, so I'm going to have him in here a little bit longer. The weather has been vile, and then we'll band him, his tail, castrate him, and then he'll go outside with everybody else, and you will retire. Yes, no more babies for you. You can see how good she is, just stamping at the dog. Such a good mum, aren't you? Another success I've had is finally getting the Muskies and the geese to lay where I want them to. You might recall that one of my geese, or my female goose, decided to have a nest in the middle of the hedgerow, which I couldn't really protect, and I was really worried about the fox getting her. And in the end, I decided to leave her out overnight. And as soon as it got dark, they started making loads of noise. I got really stressed. I came and put them away, and actually all of her eggs got taken. She had laid one single egg inside this chicken tractor. And so what I did was I brought in some straw and put it at the back, and now we have a nest. So she is actually laying in here. And so now it means when she goes broody, I can still lock her in it. I can be completely content that I can lock them in at night. They'll be safe from the fox, and she can sit on her eggs in peace. So that is a result. I also had the same issue with Muskies. A fox had never come to the barn before. I had a couple of broody Muskies on nests in the barn. I thought I'll leave them. fox found them and took them and their eggs. So they now have a night shelter, and one of them has started nesting in the night shelter, and she is now brooding on eggs. So it means that again, I can shut her away at night, she's safe, and the fox can't get her. And so hopefully there will be goslings and ducklings on the cards in a month or so. We're also just down to just 3 piglets because their 4 sisters went to a new home, and those 3 are going to a new home tomorrow. So all 7 piglets have been sold, which is really, really great. One thing that hasn't been a massive success, it's not necessarily been a failure because we hasn't had a chance yet, but it hasn't been a successful start, is the market garden, because the weather, I don't know how it is for you guys, but we have just had horrible weather. Really windy, pretty cold, but not freezing temperatures, just a really low cold, and no sun. So nothing is growing. So I've got quite a lot out in beds, and you might remember the lettuces and the spinach that I put out a month ago, maybe even more, and it's really not done anything. It's just having such a hard time getting going. And it's the same for everything. You know, I've got the spring onions, I've got some baby chard, I've got some lettuces down here, I've got some beets, and you can see, look, there is new leaves, there is new growth, but we are just not getting the sun that is required. This past weekend we had 2 days of, it was nearly 20 degrees and it was super sunny, and it felt like, yes, everything is going to get going. And then we had 2 days of, well, some of the wind here got up to 50, 60 miles an hour. It was terrible. We had sleet, hail, the caravan was rattling. I was watching a movie about 10 a.m. in the morning because I couldn't come outside. It was shaking. The caravan was shaking that much. The TV was shaking. It felt like I was in a 4D experience. It was madness. So the garden is not really coming on how I'd like. We've also had some rooks come in. So these were nice delineated pathways and a bed in the middle, and you can see the rooks have come in and they've done that and flicked it all everywhere. I mean, the main thing is we still do have the plants. And I must say the broad beans are starting to improve. Again, these broad beans were put out a long time ago and they've just been flattened by the wind. It's knocked them for 6. They have not grown well at all. But they're finally starting, you know, they are actually covered in flowers. They're starting to put on some top growth. They are starting to kind of stand up a bit more. But I don't think we're going to get a miracle harvest off them by any means. I have, however, finally started to shift that muck. I say this almost every single video, but there is a muck heap right over there in the far distance, and I have to bring it by wheelbarrow all the way over here. I finally started. This is 6 barrows here, and I still obviously need to do all of this, and that's 2 beds worth. So what do we think? 6, 12, 18, 20, I reckon almost 30 barrows per bed, and I've got 3 beds, so that's 90 barrows. That's going to be some cardio, isn't it? But we're getting there. And as I say, I don't need to plant these up yet because these are beds that I've got holes in, so I plant through the holes, and they are mostly going to be, I am going to put kale in here, and that's why I'm trying to get this 1 bed done, but the rest will be courgettes, summer squashes and things like that can't go out yet anyway, so it doesn't really matter that the bed is not prepped. The one place of some slight relief from the wind, which has been bitingly cold, is the Polytunnel. And we've still got our lovely crop of of lettuces, and you can tell that we are getting that longer daylight because this Mizuna is starting to come along quite nicely, as are these spring onions, which have been in since before Christmas. I think they were small plants, but they've suddenly started to actually get some decent growth and stems on them. So they'll be the first crop of spring onions I get from this year. I've also run out of flats, cell trays. I've actually had to resort to doing this instead. So I've got a flat that isn't divided, and I've pricked out and I've sown them slightly separately. Now it's not ideal, but it does mean at least I can prick out the good plants, I can space them, and then when I've got a cell tray free, I can pop them into that, or I can prick them if they grow big enough. I can prick them out again and put them straight outside. Most of these, in fact, I think all of these are flowers. This is a first batch of zinnia. These are gomphrena. These tiny things are a mix of different varieties of amaranth. We've got a few more gomphrena. This is the last cell tray that I had. So some gomphrena, some amaranth, some cosmos, and just a few. I only had a very few seeds left of Carthamus nemo. So we've only got and I don't think this one's going to make it. So maybe only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe only 5 plants there. And then this is stuff that was sown in the polytunnel. So the basil, 2 types of lettuces, cornflowers. I let the tray of turnips go because I just couldn't be bothered to rescue it. Some red mustard, some verbenas. They're actually starting to come on really well. And then finally, that Thai basil has started to germinate. And so now really all the babies have been born. So all the lambs have been born, all the piglets have been born and sold. Chicks hatching is an ongoing process, but nothing that I need to really put a lot of time and attention into. So now it's time and attention into the market garden and the flower farm, because it's only 6.5 weeks before my first CSA boxes are due to be picked up, which means I really need some sunshine to get growing. And the moment I just mentioned sunshine, guess what? It started to rain again.